So recently, I've been getting a lot of comments where I'm accused of spreading socialist propaganda, which I can actually understand. I mean, just look at the thumbnail. It looks like I'm trying to start a revolution. But if people knew me, if people really knew me, they would know that nothing could be further from the truth. I have some history with communism. First of all, my great-grandfather was actually murdered by communists in World War II. He and other Polish officers were asked to dig a big hole, and then they got shot and shoved into the hole, and his body was never found. True story. If you want to read more about that, you can search for Katyn Massacre in the 1940s. That's my grandfather when he was a boy, standing next to his dad, who he never got to bury. Now, I've heard this story all my life, but it's only when you get a little bit older that you actually start to grasp the seriousness of it. Later on, I was born in Poland, and the country was taken over by communists. And eventually, my family had to escape, and this is actually how I ended up here in Sweden. But like I said, I can actually understand why some people would watch my videos and think that I'm trying to start some kind of a revolution. You know, workers unite and overthrowing the capitalist system. No, my friends, I would rather prefer an evolution or wage slaves transition peacefully to becoming financially savvy, critical thinkers, where they find their own solutions in society. I would like people to have more time for family and, self-development. There's more to life than work. Despite what companies try to make you think, you are not your job. And I met a lot of people who they don't get it. They just accept wage slavery as something normal and safe. And that's something that I just refuse to do. But in today's video, I want to explore the duality of capitalism versus socialism. And I want to offer you a philosophical perspective where these words are just simply a paradoxical duality. When you think of your workplace, the big company you work at, which of these words come first to mind? Capitalism or socialism? To me, these are just words or social constructs. They don't really reflect reality. Life is not black and white. It's not Republican or Democratic. It's all just words and power play. Now, if you start to get furious because of something that I say in the next couple of minutes, you're actually proving my point. Politics is really all about getting people upset and getting behind a side. Words like patriotism, democracy, and freedom, they're just words to keep you committed. If you're against patriotism, democracy, and freedom, you're the bad guy. And nobody wants to be the bad guy. To me, saying that you can't criticize democracy is like when you tell kids, if you make faces like that, it will stick. No, it won't. If I don't vote, democracy will fail. No, it won't. Okay, so let's start with a very simple paradox of wage slave society, and then let's dive deeper. And I'm going to show you just how deep the rabbit hole goes. A corporation today is like a small society with its own set of rules. But have you noticed its similarities with a communist dictatorship? A company owns all the equipment and all the facilities. The workers own nothing. That's communism. A leader in the company is not voted by the workers, it's selected by an elite group at the top. And so the decisions and rules in the company are not decided in a free, democratic fashion. A company does not allow workers free speech. A worker is not allowed to question or criticize the company. That doesn't sound like democracy to me. So, for example, during the whole, let's call it the Cucumber 19 event, different countries had very different opinions about face masks. In Sweden, we essentially looked at it very scientifically. At the time, there just wasn't enough data to support face masks. So, the Swedish government recommended that people use them in tight crowds, like on the bus, But I remember I was being interviewed by this company for a position. I was a consultant, for those of you who don't know. And when I was waiting in the lobby, the person who was supposed to interview me was wearing a face mask. And he gave me one and he said, "Put it on." And I was like, "Why?" And he said, "Because we use face masks at all times." "Yeah," I said, "but this is Sweden. Swedish authorities have said face masks are voluntary." And the guy looked at me and said, "Well, this company is not Sweden." So if a company under capitalist umbrella is enforcing socialistic rules like that, then it feels like a paradox to me. Now, once you see this paradox, you can't really unsee it. Now imagine that you start to look for paradoxes in society, the cracks of patriotism and freedom, and then you start to wonder, just how exactly free are we? Now, if you've seen some of my videos, you might be confused about my political stance on things. In some videos, I explain that I want to start my own business and I talk about passive income, and people in the comment section accuse me of being exactly what I despise, a capitalist. But in other videos, I trash corporations that exploit humans as working capital, and people react like, "Oh, so you want socialism? Good luck with that." So, Tom, which is it? Are you a socialist or a capitalist? Make up your mind. Where do you actually stand in politics? So, politics is like this very sensitive subject. It's very, you're either with us or against us topic. And that's the whole point. They want you to get furious. And if you clicked on this video because you just want to know where I stand politically and you're not interested in my philosophical mumbo jumbo, then my answer is, I don't believe in politics at all. I think all ideologies are interesting and teach us things, but I also believe that politicians are just liars who are using the whole left versus right spectrum to gain support for their own careers. Making these videos about wage slavery, I've been accused of all sorts of things. People either call me a communist or a capitalist, and it's all just bullshit. I'm neither. And neither is society in reality. And I'm going to prove it. But please, bear with me. And let me first share real quick my ideological journey. Do you remember when you were a kid and your parents started watching, news and yelling at the TV because some politician they hated got elected or said something bad? And I remember thinking grown-ups are so boring, being upset about boring things like politics. And then I got older and I would hear compelling arguments for socialism and capitalism. And for the longest time, I would lean more towards the right. But I always felt that things really didn't feel that black and white in reality. So, for example, when I was a student, I voted for politicians on the left who wanted to increase student aid. And when I started to make some money in my first job, I voted for politicians on the right who wanted to reduce taxes. I was looking at politics from a practical side, and I suppose I still do to this day. I'm actually going to tell you a dirty secret. Last time me and my wife voted, I actually voted for the most socialistic party in Sweden. This is a party that mostly resembles something communist. And my family originates from Poland, where communism nearly destroyed the country. So why on earth would I do something like that? I'll tell you. The only reason I voted for them is because it was the only party in Sweden who is for lowering work hours from 40 hours to 20 hours per week. It's the only party that is actually interested in giving people more freedom. Or at least, that's what they're selling. Again, I don't have a lot of faith in politicians. Needless to say, I think that politics is complete and utter BS. And I can't believe so many people fall for it. And to be honest, I don't actually believe in voting either, which I know sounds crazy, but I pay my taxes. And as far as I'm concerned, politicians are working for the people. They're working for me. So I don't care if Fred or Barney runs the country. To me, politicians, they're just public workers. No different than janitors cleaning up public parks or city planners. If a politician does a poor job or does something bad, they usually get canned. But Tom, what about the spirit of democracy? Okay, Two problems. For one thing, how is it democratic? Can anyone run for president? Or are presidential candidates selected by elite groups? So, it's not really a democracy to begin with. And also, what's so great about democracy? And I know how it sounds, but hear me out. Let's say we all vote on a couple of candidates, and whoever gets the most votes wins. Here in Sweden, it actually works like that. Last election, the party that got the most votes got something like 30%, meaning that 70% didn't get what they wanted, and now they have to suffer for 4 years because of the whole democratic voting logic. Now, before you call me an anarchist, can you honestly tell me that you believe in politicians? You don't get this gut feeling whenever a politician is talking where you think to yourself, bullshit. Listen, politicians are trained to do one thing and one thing only, to win votes. That's it. They excel at talking to their crowds to convince them that there is a problem and they can fix it, but they need your vote to fix it. It's a con. Maybe it's the world's oldest con, but it's a con. And politicians maybe start out with, pure altruistic reasons, but in order to survive in politics, you have to play the game. Now, what's that famous line from The Dark Knight? You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. I always liked that line. And I don't actually hate politicians. I'm sure that they do a lot of good, but they're not perfect. During the whole Cucumber 19 event, politicians around the world made the best decisions that they could. And today, we see a lot of mistakes that they did. I don't blame them for it. Some people would say that they used this event or even created it for their dark schemes, Personally, I find all conspiracy theories interesting and entertaining. I'm just going to say it. I love conspiracy theories. I actually have a friend who's a real anarchist, and we have wild discussions, but we get along. It's not so much that my friend hopes for the world to crumble. He just thinks that it's just gonna happen, Okay, now let's get back to history. Imagine a time and a place where there were no countries. All we had were farmers living neighbor to neighbor. They didn't have any quarrels with each other. They were just trying to build a life for themselves and their families. But one day, a king draws a line between them, and suddenly, these two farmers belong to different countries. Years later, these countries are at war with each other. And today, we're actually still playing that same game of you're either with us or against us. Everything started with this whole ancient story of good versus evil. Have you noticed it today? It's the whole Putin thing. NATO is the good guy and Putin is the bad guy, It's like this story of the good princess being kidnapped by the evil king, and the good hero is sent in to save her. It sounds familiar, right? It's the same story since the dawn of time. You find it in movies and in games, but also in the political arena. But it's just a story. In the end, the two farmers just want to live their lives. And that's why I don't fall for patriotism. I don't think that Sweden is the best country in the world. Honestly, what is a country? It's a place with a certain language and a certain culture, but mostly it's just imaginary lines drawn in the sand. So what is the solution? Simple. Stop thinking problem and solution. This is an idea that kings and politicians have planted in societies for centuries. If politics actually solved any problems, we would not need them anymore. This is a long con. Now, I know that I can't convince you of my beliefs regarding politics. You have your ideology and your idea of right versus wrong, left versus right, and you can choose to believe that for the rest of your life. But I can promise you two things. One, you will be used for the rest of your life by politicians trying to get votes. And two, at the end of it all, nothing will ever be solved. Okay, but Tom, what does all of this political philosophy have to do with wage slavery? Because politics and wage slavery only work when people don't think for themselves. And most people, they don't. This is why they are stuck. If you can't see past the charade, if you stop falling for the lies, you can focus on what truly matters. You can start building a life for yourself, a life where you live for you and not them. As always, thank you for listening. Do me a favor and tap that like button to show your support. Subscribe if you're interested in more content like this. Until next time, stay hungry, relentless, and strong in your journey of escaping wage slavery. Bye. Oh, you're still here. Oh, that's right. It's the behind the scenes vlog. Once again, I'm making this video after work. I'm dead tired. The reason I recorded this after work and not on a Saturday is because I want to make time for my family. And this is what these videos are all about for me. You know, I want more freedom. And all this wage slavery talk, it stems from my inner desire to achieve freedom. That's it. Now, in my last video, 7 Wage Slave Lies, it did incredibly well. I got a lot of views and a lot of new subscribers, which is great, but it doesn't feel real. And the reason for that is subscribing accounts either get abandoned or YouTube decides not to recommend my videos to my subscribers at some point. And that's fine, it's YouTube, I'm used to it. I know several YouTubers struggling with this and some even quit. It's hard to rely on views here, which is why I've been sort of having second thoughts about this whole YouTube thing being my career, right? Like, don't get me wrong, I love it and I will be doing YouTube for the rest of my life. But as far as the idea of building a sustainable business model, I'm just not sure that I'm talented and disciplined enough. And when I say discipline, I mean like not doing cowboy stunts. You know, I like to challenge the status quo all the time. I like to say stuff that some people could get upset over. You know, like I said before, my truth is a philosophical one. I like to question things we take for granted. Nevertheless, my plan is still the same. 2024 is the year that I'm leaving wage slavery forever. Okay, bye.